Buenos días, queridas y queridos. Hoy día nos toca la lectura de las enseñanzas de la IAM, el libro de los discursos, capítulo 1, en inglés. Vamos a comenzar con nuestra conexión, centrándonos en la respiración, inhalando por la nariz, reteniendo y exhalando, sintiendo nuestro cuerpo envuelto en una destellante luz blanca. Reconociendo y sintiendo intensamente la conexión entre nuestra forma exterior y nuestra poderosa presencia I Am, centrando toda nuestra atención en nuestro corazón, visualizándolo como un gran sol oro. Yo acepto ahora alegremente la plenitud de la presencia divina, el puro Cristo. Sientan la gran claridad de la luz y su intensidad en cada electrón de nuestro cuerpo. I am, yo soy una hija de la luz. Yo amo a la luz, yo sirvo a la luz, yo vivo en la luz. I am. Yo soy protegida, clarificada, colmada y sostenida por la luz. Y yo bendigo a la luz. Gracias, está cumplido.
A King, whose untiring effort has enabled me to bring forth unveiled mysteries, the magic presence, and the I Am discourses in their present splendid form. All credit is given Lotus for editing these books. By her great tenacity, in holding so closely to her mighty I Am presence, she has called perfection into action. I wish to thank Betty Mundy for her gracious assistance in perfecting the manuscripts, and Arthur Brooks and May de Camera for their painting of the magic presence. I am also grateful to the many students who have so earnestly called the mighty I Am presence into action for the success and perfection of this transcendent blessing to mankind. Godfrey Ray King, Chicago, Illinois, December 7, 1939. Dedication. This series of books is dedicated in deepest, eternal love and gratitude to our beloved masters, Saint Germain, Jesus, Nada, the great divine director, to the great white brotherhood, the brotherhood at the Royal Teton, the brotherhood at Mount Shasta, the great ones from Venus, and those other ascended masters whose loving help has been direct and without limit. Editor's note. The words of Jesus, as quoted throughout this series of books by Godfrey Ray King and the Ascended Masters, are the authentic statements he uttered, although they do not always agree verbally with some versions of the Christian Bible. This fact should not surprise the truth seeker who understands the difficulties encountered in translation. and realizes how many times the Bible has been translated in the past 1600 years. Jesus has spoken again on the visible light and sound ray, and made this point clear, saying, "It is unfortunate indeed that some of the scriptural statements have been clouded by human concepts, yet I am thankful indeed that many have remained unaltered." Lotus Ray King. Tribute. At the present time, the attention of mankind is being drawn to the conscious understanding and use of the words "I am" by the ascended masters, Saint Germain, Jesus, and others of the ascended host, who are pouring out ceaselessly the great light to release freedom, peace, and perfection. The cosmic command for the permanent golden age has been given and must now manifest on this planet. The great ascended masters have worked for centuries preparing for the expansion of light that is now flooding the entire system to which this earth belongs. The great cosmic law has begun the release and increase of that light, which compels all things to come into perfect divine order wherever it flows. These great ones have always been the custodians of the eternal inner understanding concerning the use of the great creative word "I am." They, and they alone, have been able to give the complete understanding concerning what occurs when those two words "I am" are used. They have been the elder brothers, protectors, guardians, and infallible teachers of mankind throughout the centuries. The ascended masters are the only infallible source of instruction to the humanity of this earth, because they are wholly divine and one with the God self of every individual. They are the living fulfillment of the law they teach, and are the only ones who have manifested complete victory over so-called death. They are the full manifestation of that light and love which rule the universe and which maintain divine order throughout infinity. The release of their combined light is taking place and flooding the earth at the present time. All that is not of the light is consumed thereby. Their light will continue to expand throughout this planet until all its humanity has made the ascension also, and the earth itself becomes a blazing sun whirling in its appointed path in space. To these great ascended masters, mankind owes all the good it has ever received or drawn forth, because they are the way and means by which the infinite God self expands its perfection through the finite activities of personalities. This earth and its humanity are entering into the I am age, and therefore the full use of this I am knowledge must be understood and utilized by the individuals who live here in the present and near future. The great cosmic beings, the ascended masters, and angelic hosts have given tremendous protection to America and her people, especially over the last 5 years. To all individuals who will call unto them in the name of the mighty I Am Present, keep their feelings harmonized, and pour out intense love continually to their own mighty I Am Presence, will be given assistance without limit. This book is especially charged with Saint Germain's ascended master consciousness and love, and that of the other ascended masters concerned with this activity, to bring protection, freedom, illumination, and perfection to all who read or contact it, that all may express mastery and also make their ascension. It is the privilege of every student of light at this time to call in the name of the I Am Presence with all earnestness and love to these great ones, to protect America, the government and her people, to illumine all officials of the government, to perfect all within her borders, and to compel obedience everywhere unto the light of God that never fails. Godfrey Ray King. Forward. The 33 discourses contained in this book were dictated over a visible light and sound ray in our home during 1932 by the Ascended Master Saint Germain and those other Ascended Masters directly concerned with this activity. The sound of his voice was physically audible to everyone in the room. At times his visible, tangible presence also stood within the room, when he radiated the power and energy of the light rays to accomplish special work. The training and preparation for him to do this at the present crisis of the outer world was given us over a period of 30 years, that it might be accomplished at this time, and assistance from the Ascended Masters come forth in this way to protect and free all individuals who make conscious effort to correct themselves and attain mastery over all things on this earth. Never before, except in the retreats of the Great White Brotherhood, has such intensified, transcendent instruction concerning the I Am been given to individuals. Not for thousands of years have the true inner instruction and use of the sacred flame been taught to mankind, as Saint Germain and others of the Ascended Masters have revealed. Permission for them to be explained to students as given forth in these discourses has been granted to us by these great ones. Such instruction as is herein contained has never been given to students until after a 3-year probation in the retreats. The condition of the outer world at the present time is such that those who sincerely seek the light and want the constructive way of life must have more than human help if they are to survive over the present period of chaos, which is the accumulated discord generated by humanity en masse through the centuries, and which is pressing heavily upon the outer experience of individuals today. The need of protection and help for the children of earth is so great at the present hour that the great Ascended Masters and Legion of Light have let the bars down, so to speak, and have released this inner understanding of the mighty I Am Presence into the outer life of mankind, that all who want the light and will make conscious effort to attain their own freedom and mastery may have the assistance which will give them the eternal victory. Only fragments of the real understanding of the I Am Presence have been given to the outer world until now. The Ascended Master Saint Germain says, "It is the most important understanding mankind can ever have, and there is no freedom nor perfection for the individual except through this conscious application." He considers it of such paramount importance that he dictated more than 33 discourses in which he explains what happens in the outer life of the individual when one says, "I am." He also says, nothing will bless the individual to so great a degree as the conscious understanding of this creative word. When the phrase "mighty I Am Presence, come forth" is used throughout this series of books, it is always a call to the God Presence to pour forth or release the outpouring of perfection which the one making the call desires. It is always thought, felt, written, or spoken with a feeling of intense love. It is always a call to God, the mighty I Am Presence, to establish perfection everywhere, and thus let God's will, perfection, be made manifest on earth. When a command is given, it is always the outer self calling unto God, and in the name of that mighty I Am Presence, commanding substance and energy to obey the decree given, which is the self-conscious effort required in order to open the door for the intelligence of the I Am to release its perfect manifestation. This book not only carries the Ascended Master's understanding of the I Am, but is charged with Saint Germain's Ascended Master consciousness and the ray of light and love from his heart, which is the Ascended Master's feeling and comprehension of its full power forever self-sustained. May this book of I Am Discourses anchor the attention of all who read or contact it so powerfully upon each individual's own divinity that the full Ascended Master's consciousness of the mighty I Am presence shall fill the earth and release with the power of 1,000 suns the eternal dominion of the light of God that never fails. Godfrey Ray King. The I Am Discourses by the Ascended Master, Saint Germain. Discourse number 1, October 3, 1932. Saint Germain. Invocation. Thou infinite mighty presence, thou all-pervading principle of life, we give praise and thanks for thy wondrous activity through all outer presence. Out of thy mighty essence comes all that is, and oh, that humanity might understand, thou art ever and forever self-sustained. Thou mighty, active principle of life, surge forth in the outer activity of mankind, and manifest thy supreme justice now in all places. Mighty presence of light, God in action, govern the minds of mankind, holding them to truth and justice, and see that thy messengers are placed in all official positions. Let naught of the outer interfere, that none of humanity may accept any thought of deception. Mighty presence of God in action, surge forth in the minds of all, expressing thy conquering presence. Greetings. I bring you greetings from the perfected ones, who are watching closely over and ministering to all. The Discourse. Life, in all its activities everywhere manifest, is God in action, and it is only through lack of the understanding of applied thought and feeling that mankind is constantly interrupting the pure flow of that perfect essence of life, which would, without interference, naturally express its perfection everywhere. The natural tendency of life is love, peace, beauty, harmony, and opulence. For life cares not who uses it, but is constantly surging to pour more of its perfection into manifestation, always with that lifting process which is ever inherent within itself. I am. I am is the activity of that life. How strange it is that students with sincere interest do not seem to get the true meaning of those two words. When you say and feel, I am, you release the spring of eternal, everlasting life to flow on its way unmolested. In other words, you open wide the door to its natural flow. When you say, I am not, you shut the door in the face of this mighty energy. I am is the full activity of God. Having placed before you so often the truth of God in action, I wish you to understand its first expression in individualization. The first expression of every individual everywhere in the universe, either in spoken word, silent thought, or feeling, is I am, recognizing its own conquering divinity. The student, endeavoring to understand and apply these mighty yet simple laws, must stand guard more strictly over his thought and expression, in word or otherwise. For every time you say, I am not, I cannot, I have not, you are, whether knowingly or unknowingly, throttling that great presence within you. This is just as tangible as if you placed your hands about the throat of an outer form. Only with the outer form, your thought governing the hand, you can release it at any time. But when you make a declaration using the words, I am not, you set in motion mighty, limitless energy that continues to act unless it is recalled and the imperfection consumed and transmuted. This shows you the enormous power you have to qualify this mighty energy of God. And I tell you, beloved students, dynamite is less dangerous, for that would but liberate you from the body, while these thoughts, sent forth ignorantly and ungoverned, bind you upon the wheel of re-embodiment indefinitely. Thus you can see how important it is for you to know what you are doing when you thoughtlessly use wrong expressions, because you are using the most divine principle of activity in the universe, I am. Do not misunderstand me. This is no idle, foreign, or oriental expression, but the highest principle of life, used and expressed throughout every civilization that has ever existed. For the first expression every self-conscious form of life gives is I am. It is only afterwards, in its contact with outer, wrongly qualified activity, that it begins to accept anything less than I am. Now, dear students, do you not see that when you say I am sick, you are just reversing this principle of life, which is naturally all perfection, thus requalifying it by your willful ignorance with something which it never naturally possessed? Through long centuries of willful misunderstanding, humanity has charged the very atmosphere about them with falsehood and unreality. For I need not say to you that when you say I am sick, it is an abject falsehood in respect to your divinity, which cannot be sick. Does this sound harsh to you? Then I say think it over, and you will see what a blessing and release it can be to you. I say to you, dear students, in the name of God, stop using these wrong expressions of your Godhead, of your divinity, for it is impossible for you to have freedom as long as you continue to do it. I cannot speak of this to you too often, that when you really recognize and accept the mighty presence of God in you, there are positively no adverse conditions. Stop, I say to you, giving power to the outer conditions, persons, places, or things, and in the name of God, every time you find yourself starting to say, I am sick, I am broke, I am not feeling well, instantly reverse this fatal condition to your progress, and declare silently, with all the intensity of your being, I am, which is all health, opulence, perfection, happiness, peace, and the power to recognize perfection in yourself and everywhere else. When you think of the expression, I am, it means that you know you have God in action expressing in your life. Do not let these false expressions continue to govern and limit you. Continually remind yourself, I live, move, and have my being and all outer expression in the full opulence of God, made manifest every moment. In thus reminding yourself of this invincible, unconquerable presence, you keep the door open for its pure, invincible essence and intelligence to weave into your outer expression that wondrous perfection. I plead with you, dear ones, everywhere, Do not continue to use these wrong expressions, thinking that in some hocus-pocus way you may slide past reaping the result. It simply cannot be done. Many of you know that they use the branding iron on the western frontier as a recognition of ownership by the ranchmen. So great is my desire to have you recognize and hold fast to the active presence of God in you that I almost long for a branding iron to brand those words "I am" into your consciousness for constant use, that you could not be drawn off the recognition, acceptance, and use of that mighty, glorious presence of God which you are. I trust that all who may hear or read these words will feel the power and the mighty conviction of this truth that goes with them, leaping into action wherever expressed. If at any time anything less than perfection attempts to make an appearance in your experience, declare vehemently that it is not true, and that you accept only God, which is perfection in your life, everywhere manifest. As long as you give way to accepting false appearances, you will have them expressed in your life and experience. It is not, dear student, a matter of belief on your part, whether you accept these truths or not, but they are the law, proven through long centuries of experience, and are placed before you for your freedom. Awaken to the fact that your thought and feeling in the past have built, created the inharmony of your world today. Arise, I say arise, and walk with the Father, the I Am, that you may be free from these limitations. There's only one thing in this universe that can surround you with limitation, and that is accepting the outer appearance instead of the mighty, active presence of God in you. The Western world likes to fool itself with the idea that it refuses to accept the ancient and Eastern idea of sorcery, in other words, the misuse of the spiritual powers. The worst kind of sorcery is being used in the political fields today that has ever been known in the history of mankind, through the use of mental power, wrongly qualified. If this same tremendous mental force were used in just the reverse way, to know that there is only God in action, in every individual filling official places, the sender of that quality or truth would not only be free himself, but the political world would be filled with freedom and justice. Then we would experience a natural world, a world of God in action, everywhere present. It is today as it was at one time in Egypt. Those who misuse the mental power are binding themselves to the rack of inharmony, embodiment after embodiment. Take the stand. I do not take on conditions from anybody or anything about me, but God, good, and I am always God commanded. You need to acquire the habit of stilling yourself. Sit down 3 or 4 times a day and simply still the outer self. This will let the energy be supplied. Learn to command and control the energy in your body. If you want the energy still, be still. If you want the energy active, be active. You must stand up, face a thing, and rise above it. There is no other way. The student should watch in every way for habits and break them up. He should not have to be told, but must look within himself and uproot whatever is not perfect. This brings a freedom not possible in any other way. The holding on of old habits is just like wearing old worn-out garments. The student must not wait for someone else to think these things out for him. He must do it himself. It is not possible for anyone to do it but himself. In this work and under this radiation, everything that is latent in the individual is being brought forth to be consumed. Watch that the attention does not become fixed on the thing you do not want. It is perfectly ridiculous to keep recalling things which have not worked out. If you have built your limitations for centuries and can, by this attention and self-effort, free yourself in a few years, isn't it worth it? Is it not marvelous? A humorous sense of getting away from a thing is sometimes the quickest and most powerful way of doing it. For a buoyant, joyous feeling releases the energy that many times enables a very wonderful manifestation to take place. If one will buckle down to brass tacks and call on the law of forgiveness, he can then consume all past creations in the consuming flame and be free. You must be conscious that the flame is the active presence of God doing the consuming. The freedom of God is here in action. When you have a feeling to do a certain constructive thing, go ahead, stick to it, and do it if the heavens fall. Whether the manifestation comes now or not should not enter into your consciousness at all. Even when students only know a thing intellectually, they should not allow the mind to keep recalling wrong conditions when they know what this activity does to their success. It is unbelievable that people will not conquer this enemy in their consciousness. No student can ever gain the victory until he stops turning back to the old negative conditions he is trying to get rid of. The whole work of a teacher is to get some means and explanation over to the student of the activity of acceptance. What the mind accepts is that which the individual agrees with through his attention, by letting the two become one. When the mind accepts and agrees with a thing or condition, the individual decrees it into his world. Whatever you let the attention rest upon, you are agreeing with and accepting, because through the attention you have let the mind become one with it. If an individual were to see a rattlesnake coiled, would he walk right up to be struck? Certainly not. Yet this is what students are doing when they let their attention turn back to their troubles. Such habits are only past momentum given a specific quality. There are only two activities in life, and if you will not let the inner govern according to its plan of perfection, then the outer must. When a constructive picture is flashed to your mind, it is a reality. When you recall it as a mental picture and hold it again, it calls forth the reality. One can become so aware of his own God presence that at any time he can see and feel its radiance pouring out to him. For things it does not want, the outer has all the confidence in the world. It is up to the student to compel it to have the same confidence for the perfection of God that it has for the imperfection of the senses. The student must always rely on himself. He must always think, what can I do to intensify this activity from the hints given? Benediction. Mighty perfected ones, as we receive thy magic circle of protection, as we receive and are enfolded in thy mighty opulent presence, O Master within, we accept fully that opulence made manifest in our outer experience and use. We give praise and thanks for thy wisdom in its use. we give praise and thanks that we have the full strength to accept only thy mighty active presence at all times, and to refuse acceptance to anything unlike thee. Discourse number 2, October 6, 1932. Saint Germain. Invocation. Thou infinite all-pervading presence, thou mighty Master within each human form, we acknowledge and accept thy full presence manifest within these forms, and within the human form of every individual that God has sent forth. We give praise and thanks that at last we have become aware of this mighty presence, to whom we can turn and recognize the fullness of God's activity, the I Am of all things. Greetings to you all. The Discourse. When Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life, he gave forth one of the mightiest utterances that can well be expressed. When he said, I am, he did not refer to the outer expression, but he did refer to the mighty Master Presence, God within, because he repeatedly said, I of myself can do nothing. It is the Father within, the I Am, that doeth the works. Again Jesus said, I am the way, the life, and the truth, giving recognition to the one and only power, God in action within him. Again he said, I am the light that lighteth every man that cometh into the world, prefacing every statement of vital importance with the words, I am. Contemplating I am as anything and everything you wish to be is one of the mightiest means of loosing the inner God power, love, wisdom, and truth, and setting it into action in the outer experience. Again, let us refer to his mighty utterance, perhaps one of the greatest ever spoken into the outer expression, I am the open door which no man can shut. Do you not see how very vital this is when you come to review understandingly these mighty statements? When you recognize and accept fully I am as the mighty presence of God in you in action, you will have taken one of the greatest steps to liberation. Now mark you, in the utterance of the truth, that I am the open door which no man can shut, if you can but realize it, you have the key that allows you to step through the veil of flesh, carrying with you all consciousness that you have generated or accumulated which is imperfect, and there transmute it, or in other words, raise it into that perfection into which you have stepped. Too much stress cannot be laid upon the importance of contemplating as often as possible the I Am as the mighty active presence of God in you, in your home, in your world, in your affairs. Every breath you breathe is God in action in you. Your ability to express or send forth thought and feeling is God acting in you. You having free will, it is entirely up to you to qualify the energy sent forth in your thought and feeling, and determine how it shall act for you. No one can say, how shall I know how to qualify this energy? For everyone knows the difference between destructive and constructive thought, feeling, and action. The student, in receiving instruction, should constantly analyze the motive back of the question, to detect if in that motive there is a feeling of intellectual pride, arrogance, or stubbornness in the outer mind and body. If there is within the motive a lurking desire to argue and prove the instruction wrong rather than receive the blessing and truth intended, the individual has unknowingly shut the door for the time being to his ability to receive the good offered. Again, may I remind the students, regardless of their personal opinions as to what the truth shall be, I have proven through many centuries these condensed instructions now being given forth. If one wants to receive the greatest benefit possible and the comprehension that will be absolute certain freedom and liberation, listen with an entirely open mind, with the consciousness that the I am, the active presence of God in you, is your certain ability to receive, accept, and apply without limit the instruction which is being given forth with an accompanying radiance, which will enable certain students at this time to comprehend these simple yet mighty assertions of truth to their great blessing and freedom. The admonition has been before humanity through many centuries, ye cannot serve two masters. Why is this so? First, because there's only one intelligence, one presence, one power that can act, and that is the presence of God acting in you. When you turn to the outer manifestation and give all kinds of expressions and appearances power, you are attempting to serve a false, usurping master, because the outer expression can only find an appearance through the use of God's mighty energy. Your ability to lift your hand and the life flowing through the nervous system of your outer form is God in action in your body through your mind. Dear students, try to use this simple means as a reminder of God in action in you. When you start to go down the street, think for an instant, this is God's intelligence and power by which I walk, and this is His intelligence by which I know where I am going. Thus you will see that it is no longer possible to go on without understanding that every move you make is God in action. Every thought in your mind is God's energy, which enables you to think. When you know this is a fact, and there is no disputing it, why not adore, give full confidence to, trust in, have faith in, and accept this mighty presence of God in action in you? Instead of looking to the outer expression, which is clothed, qualified, and colored by the outer or human concept of things, regardless of the one mighty presence which enables the outer to express. All outer form and its attendant expression is but the experience, life, by which each individual may learn through his own experiences the true source of his being, and come again into the fullness of perfection through the self-conscious knowing thus attained. The outer experience of life is but a constant, changing, passing picture that the outer mind has created in its pretense, imagination, of being the real actor. Thus is the attention so constantly fixed upon the outer, which alone contains imperfection, that the children of God have forgotten their own divinity and must come back to it again. God is the giver, the receiver, and the gift, and is the sole owner of all the intelligence, substance, energy, and opulence there is in the universe. If the children of God would learn to give for the joy of giving, whether it be love, money, service, or whatever it may be, they would open the door to such vast opulence that it would be impossible to want for a single thing in the outer expression. The unfortunate thing in humanity, which has caused such rampant selfishness and unprecedented condemnation of each other, is the idea of claiming ownership to these wonderful blessings of God. For there is but one love acting, one intelligence, power, and substance, and that is God in every individual. The warning that should be placed before every student and individual is to guard against the desire of the outer self to claim power of its own. If in every act of the personality God were given full credit, transformations unbelievable could not help taking place in the one thus giving full credit and power where it belongs. There has rarely been a correct understanding of supply and demand. There is positively abundant supply omnipresent, but the demand for it must be made before the law of the universe permits it to come into the expression and use of the individual. The individual, having free will, must consciously, with full determination, make the demand, and it cannot fail to come forth into expression, no matter what it is, so long as the individual holds an unwavering, determined consciousness. This simple statement, used with sincere determination, I am the great opulence of God made visible in my use right now and continuously, will bring to the individual all he can possibly use. The limiting element so many students seem to be aware of is that they start out declaring the truth, for instance, as in the above statement. But before many hours have passed over their heads, if they were to analyze themselves conscientiously, they would find in their feelings lurking doubt or fear, for both these are feelings. Naturally, this neutralizes to a large extent the constructive force that would quickly bring about the fulfillment of the desire or demand. Once a student can become fully aware that every right desire or wish is God in action, propelling his energy forth to full accomplishment, and is always self-sustained, he would become aware of the limitless love, power, and intelligence he has with which to accomplish any given purpose. With this simple understanding, the word failure would be completely wiped out from his world, and in a very short time from his consciousness, because he would see that he was wielding intelligence and power that could not fail. Thus, students and individuals come into their full dominion as God intends. It was never intended by the great, all-wise, all-loving Father that any of his children should want for a single thing, but because they allow their attention to become fixed on the outer appearance, which is like the changing sands of the desert, they have knowingly or unknowingly cut themselves off to a large degree from that great opulence and intelligence. This great opulence is their birthright, which everyone can have who will again turn to the I Am, the active principle of God, forever within himself, as the only source of active life, intelligence, and opulence. All through the ages, there have been certain standards of conduct necessary for the student who desires to reach beyond certain attainments. This is the conserving and governing of the life force through the sex. For an individual who has been using this energy without any thought of governing it to suddenly say, I will cease this, cut it off as it were, without understanding the correct attitude of consciousness, would be simply suppressing a flow of energy which he has caused to flow in the wrong direction. Any student who wishes to govern this will find this simple statement the most efficient, if used understandingly, of any one particular thing that can be given. This will normally and naturally govern the flow of the life energy and bring it back into its natural channels. It is the mighty statement of Jesus, I am the resurrection and the life. This statement will not only purify the thought, but is the most powerful lifting, adjusting force that can be used for the correction of this greatest of barriers to the full height of spiritual attainment. Anyone who begins to feel the inner impulse to correct this condition, and will use this statement earnestly and continuously, will raise this marvelous current of energy to the highest center in the brain, as was originally intended. He will find his mind flooded with the most marvelous ideas, with the abundant sustaining power and ability coming into expression and use for the blessing of all mankind. I ask any student to try this and watch the results in his own mind and body. Feel deeply this statement of Jesus: I am the resurrection and the life. Repeat it 3 times, either silently or audibly, and notice the lifting of consciousness which you will experience. There may be some who will need to try this several times in order to feel the amazing uplift that others will experience at the first trial. This will show you in a small way what can be done by its continued use. There is only one means of overcoming or rising out of anything, and that is, after you know what it is you are to rise out of, to take your outer attention completely away from it, fixing it firmly upon the above statement. Any condition in the outer experience that one wishes to overcome can readily be accomplished by the use of this statement, as well as using it to change the flow of the misdirected energy. I had one student who felt the inner impulse to redirect this mighty energy, and the use of this single statement alone enabled her, with little assistance, to raise her body. In 1 year, a marvelous transformation took place in her entire outer appearance. It seems incredible that in the recorded statements accredited to Jesus, which were only a part of what he really gave forth, that so few of humanity would receive the mighty import of those wonderful words of wisdom. At no time in the history of the world have so many mighty statements been given as he taught. Every one of these, when conscientiously used, holds within it the attendant radiance and accomplishment with which he attained. You not only have this power of the I Am, but his individual assistance also when these statements are used. One should often contemplate the true meaning of these mighty statements of Jesus. When once you understand that your thought, feeling, and expression of I Am sets the mighty God power in you into action without any limit, then you receive that upon which the desire is fixed. It should be no trouble for the student to see and understand that the outer appearance is but man's distorted creation, by claiming the outer as a source of power, when a moment's contemplation will cause him to realize that there is but one love, intelligence, and power which can act, and that is God. The human or outer defects or discrepancies have nothing to do with the omnipresent perfection of God. For anything imperfect is the creation of the outer concept of mankind. If man will turn to the mighty I Am within, knowing that God is all perfection, and that all outer appearance is but man's creation through the misuse of the God power, he will see at once that if he sincerely contemplates and accepts the perfection of God, he will cause to come into manifestation in his life and experience this same mighty perfection. There is no possible means of bringing this perfection into your mind, body, and outer experience except by knowing and accepting the mighty active presence of God in you. Such full recognition will cause this inner power to propel this perfection of God into your outer visible experience. Say to students, I am putting forth as a messenger of this truth statements of truth, which will positively produce results if unwaveringly held to and used. Students think things do not work because they do a thing today and forget it all next week. The desire for light and truth is the presence of God in the desire, propelling itself forth into action. For illumination, use the statement, I am the full comprehension and illumination of this thing I want to know and understand. The day your eyes are opened to see some of these marvelous ascended beings, the joy will last through eternity. If one does not take the attitude that I have the ability to do this, he never in the world can accomplish the thing he wishes to do. The moment you express, I am the resurrection and the life, in thought and feeling, it immediately turns all the energy of your being to the center in the brain, which is the source of your being. You cannot overestimate the power in this statement. There is no limit to what you can do with it. It was the statement that Jesus used most in his most difficult trials. Always know that when you decree a constructive thing, it is God in you propelling you to do it. It is the most foolish question imaginable to ask. Have you proved this in your own experience? Each individual has to prove it for himself, or it will mean nothing to him. Nothing ever really means anything to anyone until he uses it. The feeling carries with it a certain coexistent sight. One often feels a thing with such clearness that he really sees it from the inner standpoint. As you enter the ascended state, thought, feeling, seeing, and color are almost simultaneously manifest. Harmonious sound is quiet. That is why ravishing music is the most quieting in its effect, while bombastic music is just the opposite. Benediction. Thou mighty, majestic, conquering I am, we give praise and thanks for our comprehension of Thee as God acting in us, and with Thy mighty presence and radiance, cause us to feel the mighty import of Thy mighty truth and wondrous presence. When we contemplate Thee, let Thy mighty radiance fill us with that comprehending consciousness to know and apply Thy assertions of truth more and more perfectly. We give praise and thanks for Thy mighty perfection and truth for all those who look unwaveringly to Thee. Discourse number 3, October 10, 1932. Saint Germain. Invocation. Thou infinite all-pervading presence, with Thy mighty radiance surging forth throughout the atmosphere of earth, we give praise and thanks for the onrushing Christ power of love and wisdom, which with no uncertainty is raising the consciousness of mankind above the sordid selfishness of the activity of the outer self. We give praise and thanks that we have become conscious of Thy mighty active presence at all times, and that in the conscious recognition of Thee, Thou dost charge our minds and bodies with Thy pure presence forever. I bring greetings from the radiant host to you all. The Discourse. From within the radiance of the great electronic belt, I am projecting this today. From the heart of the golden city the twin rays come forth, upon which are the speech, the light, and the sound. The time has rapidly unfolded us when we must be more aware of the great electronic belts encompassing all creation, from the Godhead to the individual. The etheric belt around the golden city is impenetrable, far more so than a wall of many feet of steel would be. so in a lesser degree may the individual with sufficient comprehension of the active principle of the God-self surround himself with an electronic belt or circle, which he may qualify in any manner he may choose. But woe be unto the individual who qualifies it destructively. If anyone should be foolish enough to do this, he would find this belt of electronic force closing in upon his own outer form, and it would be consumed. But those who with wisdom build and qualify it with God's mighty love and constructive power will find themselves moving in a world untouched by the ignorance of mankind. The cosmic period has arrived when those who have attained a certain degree of understanding must create, apply, and use this wondrous electronic circle. Every creation that is self-conscious action has this circle of pure electronic force about it naturally, but to a large degree its force is ungoverned, therefore dissipated. In consciously creating this mighty ring of pure electronic force, you stop all leaks in the generation of this limitless essence and hold it in reserve for conscious use and direction. After a few months of this conscious creative activity of and within this electronic ring, one will need to be very careful in loosing or directing this force in any manner except by divine love. In the beginning of man's individualization, he was naturally surrounded by this magic circle. But as the consciousness was lowered more and more, rents were made in this great circle of force, causing leaks, as it were, until it has almost entirely disappeared. This, however, was not a conscious creation of the individual, but was a natural enfolding circle. Now, students of the light must go to work with no uncertainty and consciously create this electronic belt about themselves, visualizing it perfect, with no rents or breaks in its construction. Thus, it will be possible to consciously reach within the electronic belt of the Godhead, and there receive limitless wisdom, love, light, and the application of simple laws by which all creative power is possible. While the student is admonished to look always and never forget it to his own God-self, which is the creator of his individualization, yet never has there been a single attainment in which there has not been given the assistance of those still in advance. There being but the one God, the one presence, and his all-powerful activity, then the one more advanced than the other is but more of the God-self in action. In this recognition you will understand why you can feel, I am here and I am there, for there is but the one God-self everywhere. When the student can once understand that the ascended host of masters are but the more advanced consciousness of himself, then he will begin to feel the unquestionable possibilities within his grasp. Whether he speaks to the Godhead direct, to one of the ascended masters of light, or to his own God-self, in reality it makes no difference, for all are one. Until one does reach this state of consciousness, it does make a difference, for the individual is almost certain to feel a division of the one self, which is not possible to be made except in the ignorance of the outer activity of the mind. When the student thinks of the outer expression, he should at all times be aware that it is but the outer activity of the one intelligence, guarding himself at all times against trying to divide in his own consciousness this one mighty God power centered in him. Again, I must remind you that this limitless mighty power of God cannot intrude its wondrous powers into your outer use except by your invitation. There's only one kind of invitation that can reach it and loose it, and that is your feeling of deep devotion and love. When one has generated about himself this electronic belt or ring, there is no power that can penetrate it except divine love. It is only your consciousness of divine love that can penetrate within this great inner blazing belt of the Godhead, through which the Godhead sends back to you its great outpouring. Mark you, through his messengers, transcendent beings so far surpassing anything of your present conception that it is not possible in words to convey to you the majesty of the love, wisdom, and power of these great ones. At this point, let me again remind you that the student who will dare to do and be silent will find himself lifted into the transcendent radiance of this inmost sphere. Then, by experiencing and seeing, will he comprehend this of which I have spoken. The soul who is strong enough to clothe itself in its armor of divine love and go forward will find no obstruction, for there is naught between your present consciousness and this mighty transcendent inner sphere to obstruct the approach of divine love. When you have touched and seen within this inner circle, you will then understand how imperfect is the present expression of divine love. Once one becomes consciously aware of these great spheres to which he may reach, he will find himself fearlessly reaching deeper and deeper within the radiance of this mighty intelligent hub of the universe, from which all worlds, all creation have proceeded. There are among you strong, dauntless, fearless souls who will understand this and be able to use it with great blessing to themselves and others. There are those who will understand and see that the presence which beats each heart is God in action, that the activity sending the circulation through the body is God, that the essence charging forward to vitalize the outer form is God in action. Then, O beloved students, awake to this now. Do you not see how great a mistake it is to sink under the ignorance of the outer self, feeling pain, distress, and disturbance, all created by the ignorance and activity of the outer self, when a few moments of earnest contemplation will cause one to realize that there can be but one presence, one intelligence, one power acting in your mind and body, and that is God. You see how simple yet powerful is this consciousness within you to loose the full recognition of the great pure activity of God into your mind and body, and to let its wondrous transcendent essence fill full to overflowing every cell. It seems to me, beloved students, that you cannot fail to grasp this simplicity of your true God self acting in you. Ever turn to it, praising it, loving it, demanding and commanding it to surge forth into every cell of your body, into every demand of the outer activity, in the home, in your affairs, in business. When your desire is sent forth clothed in the God presence, power, and intelligence, it cannot fail. It must bring to you that which you desire. Desire is but a lesser activity of decreeing. Decreeing is and should be the recognition of the accomplished desire. Beloved students, do forever put away any fear of the use of this great power. You know without being told that if you misuse it, you will experience inharmony. If you use it constructively, it will bring such blessings untold that you can but give praise and thanksgiving for the moment when you awakened to the fact that this limitless power is omnipresent, ever awaiting your conscious direction. The individual who has said that you cannot add 1 cubit to your height by your thought has stifled the activity and progress of the individual For thought and feeling are the creative power of God in action. The uncontrolled, ungoverned use of thought and feeling has brought about all kinds of discord, sickness, and distress. Few, however, believe this and keep going on, continually creating by their ungoverned thought and desire chaos in their worlds, when they could, as easily as a breath, face about, using their thought constructively with the motive power of divine love, and build for themselves a perfect paradise within the period of 2 years. Even physical science has given proof that the body or outer form completely renews itself within a few months. Then you must see that with the conscious understanding and application of the true laws of your being, how easy it is to cause perfection to manifest in your entire body, and every organ to leap into its perfect normal activity. In a short time it would not be possible for inharmony to enter your thought or body. O children reaching to the light, this great privilege is the open door of God before you, which none may shut but yourselves. None may obstruct or interfere with it but yourselves. Fearlessly use your God-given dominion and power and be free. You cannot attain and hold this perfect freedom except through consciously applied knowledge. Now I will give you a secret that, if understood by the angry or discordant individual, would tear him or her from that destructive activity even from a purely selfish standpoint. The angry, condemning person who sends out destructive thought, feeling, or speech to another, who is poised in his own God power, receives back to himself the quality with which he charged this power, while the poised person receives the energy which serves him and which he automatically requalifies by his own poise. Thus the creator of discord through anger and condemnation is consciously destroying himself, his world of activity, and his affairs. Here is a vital point students should understand. When one consciously reaches within the inner electronic circle of God, he makes his outer expression and activity a channel for the ceaseless outpouring of the pure essence from the Godhead. This in itself, even though he be entirely silent in the outer expression, is one of the greatest services to humanity, which but few not ascended are aware of what it means to mankind. The one reaching within the electronic circle becomes a continual outpouring, and this very radiation alone is a tremendous blessing to all mankind. Thus, aeon after aeon, have there been those unselfish messengers of God, through whom was poured forth the blessing of those not understanding the uplifting presence of this surging energy. When there is one or more found who can be an outpouring for this great welled-up presence, it is likened unto the first trickling of a leak in a dam. As the consciousness is held steady and firm, and as the rent in the dam increases, greater volume of water comes forth, for at last all obstruction is swept away, and the whole force back of it is poured forth into use. Unlike the water dammed up, that rushes forward dissipating itself because it is without direction, the God power thus loosed goes direct to the channel of consciousness most receptive, and there builds itself up, awaiting the opportunity to rush forward more and more. Thus the student of light, aside from his activity in dispensing the truth, becomes, as it were, an artesian well, from the depths of which flows this mighty essence of God. The students should at all times remember that no matter what their mistakes may have been, God never criticizes nor condemns them, but at every stumble which is made, in that sweet, loving voice says, "Arise, my child, and try again, and keep on trying until at last you have attained the true victory and freedom of your God-given dominion. Always, when one has been conscious of having made a mistake, his first act should be to call on the law of forgiveness and demand wisdom and strength not to make the same mistake a second time. God, being all love, must have infinite patience, and no matter how many mistakes one may have made, he can always once again arise and go unto the Father. Such is the love and freedom within which God's children are privileged to act. There is only one mighty, invincible, evolving process, and that is through the power of consciously generating divine love. Love being the hub of all life, the more we enter in and use it consciously, the more easily and quickly we release this mighty power of God, which is always standing as a dammed-up force, waiting to find an opening in our own consciousness by which it can project itself. For the first time in many centuries, the searchlights, or rays from the Golden City over the Sahara Desert, are set into active operation over America and the earth. There may be some individuals who will see these rays, not knowing what they are. Mankind need no longer think that personalities can continue to generate their destructive forces and long survive. Those who can use this knowledge of the electronic circle should no longer be deprived of its benefits. Give it forth, and the warning with it. Use this statement: I am the fulfilled activity and sustaining power of every constructive thing I desire. Use it as a general statement, for the sustaining power is in everything that there is. I am here and I am there in whatever you want to accomplish is a splendid way to feel that you are using the one activity, and you thus rise above the consciousness of separation. Benediction. O mighty ones of the Golden City, glorified are we in thy wondrous radiance. Privileged are we in the use of thy great rays. Blessed are we in the conscious recognition of thy mighty presence. Enfold us forever in thy transcendent light. Discourse.
Comenzamos a integrar toda esta frecuencia. Inhalamos por la nariz, retenemos y exhalamos lentamente, entrando en una gratitud, visualizando y sintiendo nuestro cuerpo envuelto en una destellante luz blanca, reconociendo y sintiendo intensamente la conexión entre nuestra forma exterior y nuestra poderosa presencia I Am, centrando nuestra atención en nuestro corazón, visualizándolo como un gran sol oro. Yo acepto ahora alegremente la plenitud de la presencia divina, el puro Cristo. Sientan la gran claridad de la luz y su intensidad en cada electrón de nuestro cuerpo. I am, yo soy una hija de la luz, yo amo la luz, yo sirvo a la luz, yo vivo en la luz. I am, yo soy protegida, clarificada, colmada y sostenida por la luz. Yo bendigo a la luz. Gracias, está cumplido. Creando una semana libre, perfecta y armónica, en la máxima opulencia.